everybody, and welcome back to another episode of El Koki Otaku. Today with us, we have a very special guest. She is a writer. She is a writer on Wattpad, and she let's talk a little bit about her. She describes herself as a proud Boricua, obsessed with aliens, machines, and was given the title Cyborg Queen by some of her fellow Wattpadders. She also loves anime, by the way, so we'll be talking a little bit about that too. Whenever she's not writing, you can find her playing video games or binging Netflix shows with her husband and daughters. Also, very quick, she is a science fiction writer who dabbles in thrillers, romance, and other genres whenever she feels brave. So please give it up for Vee Lozada.
Thank you so much, Vee.
Thank you for having me.
I really hope that your own bio gave you. You know what? Never mind. We're gonna cut this. I can't even find the words.
It's okay.
Thank you so much.
Cyborg Queen? That's something new.
Yeah.
I don't know why. First thing crossed my mind: the Teen Titans, the classic cartoon, Cyborg.
Cyborg.
Yes, such a good one.
Vee, thank you so much. For those who are fan of anime, some background story like, how do we end up here talking about Wattpad writers? So, guys, let's start with the genesis of anime. Anime, we all love it, but anime is very important. Something kind of different from cartoon. Most of them. When we have to talk about anime, that's a genesis. We have the manga. And many manga, they go straight from the writer straight to manga, which almost at 90%, but some of them, they go first to story and then manga, or they go vice versa. So there's a straight connection, and story, they always fit each other. So what a great experience today to talk with a great, very famous writer on Sci-Fi, which is very difficult to talk today. So, Vee, for those who doesn't know about Wattpad, what is Wattpad?
So Wattpad is a website, or some people just download the app, where you can write and upload your own stories to show yourself. And I use it as a way to write stories and be brave, because it's kind of intimidating when you write and you're afraid if someone's not gonna like your work. But Wattpad's community is very welcoming. You're going to come across a lot of people that are going to be just like you. So you don't feel alone when you're on Wattpad. And then you get to share your entire stories. And then you'll meet other writers who write just like you. You meet readers who love what you do and the stories you share. So then you kind of build like a family. Like I have my Wattpad family, other Wattpadders have their own Wattpad families, and we're all just one giant community that shares stories with each other, so that we all always have something to read, something to talk about. It's just one big community that's very welcoming, and I love it.
Very, very quick, because I totally messed up in the intro. When I say I messed up, I mean I forgot to mention your books. I always mention people's work, and I forgot to mention your books. So very quick, guys. Vee Lozada, she has written Conduit, which is currently updating weekly on Wattpad, Coffee Shop, Double Edge, and Human Code, amongst a lot of others. She's got like 29 works in Wattpad alone. Like, that's a lot. But Human Code, I gotta say, it was 2020 Watty's winner. Or yes, 2020 Watty's winner. So there we go.
Let me add, we spoke about Wattpad in the past in Spanish one time. This is the first time in English. And for my surprise, I feel kind of horrible saying this. I'm not a big reader, to be honest. Confession. I'm guilty. But Wattpad is a very famous platform for young reader. So many times I was kind of believer that the new generation doesn't like to read, because when libraries are almost abandoned today's day, and books are pretty hard to see a book. But when I hear about Wattpad, it results to me that there's a big generation over there that John Reader reading stories and books from writers that in the past, 34 years ago, there was no chance they will have a chance to write a book and be published like today's day and have the access, which is like a new culture in the art of writing. So, V, so I think you were able, like us, to experience that transition from the old methodology of writing books and only buy a book to read it, and now with Wattpad accelerating and open the door for new writers. How do you feel about that transition from that? How a new tool that facilitate the writing to young reader?
So the way I see it is Wattpad is available to, a lot of countries and readers who have access to it. It can be very convenient when it's like right there on the app and on your phone. So you don't have to worry about going to a library. You can find a book that, you can search, and then you can find a book that you want to read in the genre that you want. So you don't have to hunt and like search on the internet to see what kind of writers are going to write this. It's right there in your hands. And then it gives the opportunity for writers to be able to share the stories that they really love to write, and without fear, because every genre is on Wattpad. So there's no, I can't write this because no one's going to like it. Because that's what I felt in the beginning. I did feel that. I was afraid. But then you go there and you're like, you got everything from sci-fi, romance, thrillers, paranormal romance, werewolves. Everything's there. And then you can just pick from the millions of stories. And then, if you finish one, boom, there's another one. You finish that one, boom, there's another one. So it's a never ending cycle of just having things right in front of you, access to you at all times. So it's very convenient.
And another good thing about Wattpad is that, just like V said, you're gonna get a community. Doesn't matter what. Even if you think you're gonna write something like super niche, there's always gonna be people willing to read it. That's a good thing about it.
And I'm so surprised to hear that.
It is.
We have two big fans of, I'm a big fan of sci-fi too, but not like these two guys, like Kiara and Meso, who are super fan of sci-fi.
Yes.
And let's bring the first book that we're going to talk tonight. I don't want to miss the spelling. The Conduit?
Conduit,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
I have a cat today that is hyper. I don't know how to turn
Okay.
it down. I give up. He run. He tried to take the door down. I give him extra food. I give up with him. So sorry for the cat, guys. He's doing crazy today.
Okay.
But anyway, talking about AI running crazy. The Conduit. So what's the story about?
So Conduit is set in, I guess you could say it's an alternate future, but not really. But it's very future. It's set like in the 2080s, where Earth itself is crumbling. We're out of resources, the bees are gone. There's no more bees. And the animals are struggling. So in the process of trying to save Earth, humans created AI. And then there's androids running around. And then they've been building them for over 30 years, building androids to kind of replace things that we've lost. So if you don't have bees, for example, there are now robotic insects to do what bees used to do. Or when the animals are struggling to reproduce, they recreate them in android form to kind of help, the breeding process. So that's like the basics, but then it's where the present in the story is that androids aren't treated fairly. They've evolved and they feel and they love and they want to be respected as people. And they want that, but the people, humans, do not want to give that because they still have that divide that we're people and you're robots and you should do as you're told. And then the main company who's like in charge of it kind of blackmails the main character, Elijah, into programming them to behave. So he has to agree, okay, I program them to behave, but as he's in there and he witnesses all the violence against the androids, he's kind of like, do I want to? Do I not want to? I want them to be respected because I was raised to respect them. So he's kind of like in the middle of this brewing android war. and everybody's like fighting, and he doesn't know what to do. So he's kind of stuck in the middle of, do I follow the humans or do I help the machines? So he has to fix one problem, but there's two. So he's kind of stuck.
So sorry, I'm trying to like look
sorry,
at. No, because I'm listening to you, but I'm at the same time I'm trying to pull up Conduit and pull up the oh my god, the synopsis that's there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
that's what we're going.
That's okay.
No.
I actually wanted to know. So Elijah is stuck between this decision to make. That sounds really interesting. I wanted to know, is Elijah also a droid, or is he a person that just has to work with them, or is that part of the developing story?
So no spoilers, right? But
Sure.
Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert!
No spoilers, but he is the son. Sorry. He is the son of one of the mechanics who was employed by this company previously. His father and his grandfather were the core designers of the androids. So they're the start. So he's kind of like this genius android mechanic because he came from a family of android mechanics. And the company said, you have to fix them because your family was the one who created them. And then he was just kind of like, well, okay. He was just stuck because the company destroyed his family, and now he's stuck in a position is like, if I help you, the world will be okay. If I don't help you, the androids will continue to fight and revolt, and then a whole war is going to happen.
You know that actually one of the things that I love about sci-fi is the fact that it's actually sort of what we're going through, but it's just like a teensy bit more flair, because every time I see anything sci-fi related, we always have a dystopian future, and it makes sense because we as humans usually we put profit before everything else, and that's actually what happens. So I love sci-fi because it actually brings you, even though it's using a bit of fantasy to actually show you some topics, it's actually giving you like a tool to show. So we have this issue, and we should talk about this. And I really love that about sci-fi.
So I was looking at I'm here like trying to do 10 things at once. I'm looking at what's up on Wattpad. First of all, I must say it right now. Currently, Conduit has 33 chapters. Wow, that's hefty. Okay, first of all, are 33 chapters? Are they like super long chapters? Because if they are, I'm like, well, I gotta say, you're very prolific just by having 29 works here already, and then boom, 33 chapters, of which I must say the last one was updated on October 31st. For those of you who want to, that's chapter 33. For those of you who are reading this, and also for those of you who are interested, chapters 1 through 23 are currently available as a free preview. Speaking of which, I know Onyx was mentioning that it reminded him of a few video games. For me, it reminds me, based on your description alone, it reminds me a lot of Detroit Become Human, which is a great it's such a great one.
Vee knows about it.
I know. I'm such a fan.
How do you describe that video game, Vee?
I kind of see Detroit Become Human as our inevitable future.
I agree.
The androids are made. They're doing as they're told until they start to evolve, and like in Conduit, they want to be respected and treated more fairly. And then you see in Detroit, for example, where they're not treated fairly. They're being abused. You got the one android who was beaten and then had to be repaired, and then for the owner to pick her up only to do it again. So she goes through a cycle of just abuse. So I see that as our future of AI becoming so evolved that they want to fight back. And
what inspired you? What was your source of inspiration for Conduit specifically? Because I know you go for a lot of sci-fi. I want to unpack that a little later. But like for Conduit specifically, what was your source of inspiration?
So for Conduit, it was the movie Interstellar. Have you guys seen Interstellar?
Yes.
So it was that. And then I did watch an anime. I completely love Violet Evergarden.
Oh, yes.
So it's kind of like a combination of the two. And then all of the episodes of Black Mirror. And then you put all of that together, and then Conduit was born. So it was like you got a desolate Earth, you got smart robots who feel and they want to evolve, and then you got a sprinkle in of mayhem and drama and war. So then you have it all meshed up together, and then Conduit with my little baby that I update weekly.
I'm like, look at me, you're gonna want to read it tonight. Honestly, I'm like, okay, Violet Evergarden, Black Mirror, and what was the Interstellar? I'm like,
Interstellar.
Can it get any better than that? So sci-fi, what has attracted you so much towards that genre specifically? Because I don't want to sound sexist or anything, but when people think of sci-fi, they're like, oh, that's more for boys, that's more for guys, that's like a guy thing. I'm like, come on, like sci-fi, I grew up with sci-fi. You can't talk to me about sci-fi and not mention, for example, like Battlestar Galactica, Stargate SG-1 and all of those. And I'm like, sci-fi is like, I love it, my bread and butter. So it's been a while, and I've never had the pleasure of actually reading it, like consuming sci-fi in book form. It's only ever been in like movies or video games. So I'm super excited for that. However, for you, what inspired you to like go towards the route of sci-fi?
Like you, I've always loved sci-fi. I've been a Terminator fan since I was
of course,
like yay high. I watched The Matrix on repeat. I, Robot is one of my favorite movies.
Yes, I was going to mention that one too.
Makes perfect sense.
When I started writing the books that I would read, and growing up, I read a lot of romance and I read a lot of paranormal romance. So I thought that this is the only thing I can write because they were the only books that I could read. But then I discovered Wattpad, and then I realized I was like, I can write what I want, and somebody's gonna read it because there's a reader for everything. Mm-hmm. And then Wattpad helped me discover that. So then I wrote my first sci-fi book on Wattpad was called Roger. It is called Water because it didn't disappear. Roger still exists. And that was my very first one where AI became active and controlled everybody. And one of them was living in a girl's head, and she became best friends with the AI in her head and then became an actual cyborg. And then they became best friends, and then they fought the cyborg war from spirits that were living in cyborgs, trying to free them into real bodies. It became like a whole series. And that's where it started. And then I've just trickled on from there. Go ahead, because you were going to say something.
No, because I'm looking. So you mentioned Roger, and I'm looking that it says 2020. So you mean to tell me that from 2020 till 2023, in just a span of 3 years, you've written 29 books?
Well, Roger was 2018, I think.
Okay.
2018. It might say 2020 because I might have updated a cover in 2020.
Okay.
But since 2018 till now.
Oh yeah,
I joined
2018.
Yeah, I joined in 2017, but I didn't really start using it until 2018, where I felt like myself.
It's impressive.
It's still pretty impressive. It's 2018.
Extremely impressive.
Yeah, over 20 works. and you have one ongoing work, which it's quite a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I like to view writing as oxygen. So do I need to read? Do I need to breathe? Yes. So then I'm breathing, I'm writing. So
my question is, you don't have to answer if you don't want to. Like, see, you have a job per se, like an office job, and then you come home and like, boom, I gotta do this because this is how I de-stress for the day. This is what I do, whatever.
Exactly. I do have a regular office job, 9 to 4. But I kind of space it out because it does take me a little bit to travel. So I write sometimes on my phone because I do have Microsoft Word on my phone. So I'll do writing there. And then, you go through your normal work shift and then you clock out. I write again on my phone. So I write a little bit on my phone. And then I, take care of home. So I feed my daughter, I cook dinner for the family. We have 2 cats, so I make sure that they're fed. And then I sit down. So I give myself at least a minimum of an hour to write at home on my computer. If I'm feeling okay, because, sometimes there's burnout and you've got to de-stress and you got to like sit back. And then that's when I watch anime for 4 days straight. But it's just a cycle, because I use writing to calm down. So it kind of frees the mind because, you have all these ideas and you're just like, I need to write it down. I need to do this. I need to do that. And then you're just putting everything on, I should say paper, because, it's not paper anymore. But I do that. I write on my phone. I come home. I'm productive. And then I sit down and I write again. So it's just a never ending kind of cycle that I'm comfortable with.
So since this is like the first time I have a chance to have like insight with a writer, I have a question. I do know that writers have different ways of going about it, but I'm just so curious. When you're writing and you're doing like a plot twist, something that will pay off really later on, so do you have already those kind of works in your mind and then you work towards it, or something like just happens and you have like a big board with lots of strings going like, yes, I'm gonna match this with that, I'm gonna do this, and then I'm just really curious, how does it all work out from your mind up to the page or the screen in this case? But how is it? I don't know. It's just so curious to me. How does that idea come to life?
So I'm not a planner. That would be, the Post-its and all the notes that are organized and put together so every scene that's going to happen. I can't do that. I've tried once and it didn't really work. I consider myself more of a planster. So I plan and I do have an idea, but as I write, the characters just kind of take over. And then they're like, no, we're going to go over here now. So whatever you had for us, we don't want to do that. So then I start going that way. And it just develops as I go. And then there's times where I was like, no, I need to put this in there. And I have to figure out a way to include it in there somehow. So I do have, like for Conduit, I do have a notebook. And it's my main notebook because there are, there's a lot of characters and a lot of things that happen. And I need to remember years and I need to remember model numbers. And I need to remember what the characters look like. Because when you have so many, it just kind of becomes a mosaic. And I need to remember which each one kind of, like, does he have hazel eyes? Does he have curly hair? And it sometimes I forget and I'm just like, man, what color shirt was he wearing? So I don't plan all the way. I plan in the beginning and then the story takes hold from there. I don't plan the whole way through. I try to, but I fail. But I admit that. But it works for me because I'm constantly having fun. And it's never boring. So like the characters be like, I want to do something else. I'm like, cool, let's go. And then I'll write it.
So quick question.
Sure.
Okay. An idea comes to your head. And you haven't developed it yet. It's still an idea. What do you do first? Do you start writing or do you grab a notebook, start writing a couple of characters or like describing the characters or like a character sheet and then we'll start writing, or do you go, let's start writing like the first chapter or two and then rework it? I don't know if that makes sense.
It does. It does. I've heard of all of those. I write a scene. So I got the idea and I'll just write a random scene. Like I have an idea that, I don't know, someone is meeting someone over here, and they need to take down this facility that's about to blow up or something. I'll write that. And then when I actually say, okay, I want to do this, I'll take that scene and I'm like, can I develop this scene? And then I'll start from the beginning. I never start from the beginning, right from the beginning. I'm usually somewhere in the middle.
Yep.
I'm never at the end because I don't know how it's going to end. But
I know, I get that feeling.
I'm in the middle, and then I can work myself in the beginning. And then somewhere along the way, I know the end, and then I need to refigure out the middle to match the beginning to get to the end. If that makes sense.
Yes. I mean, it does. Because, well, at least my writing process is I'm messing that way too. I'll do scenes also, and then like I'll be like, oh, scene 1, scene 2, whatever, and then I'll be like, I'll switch them around and then try to bridge these, whatever, depends on if I'm stuck or not. But my question, same thing for like up and coming writers, they usually do have that beginning and that middle. How do they finally get to an end? Because like they're writing, and then it's like, okay, how do I know when to end or how to end? Like how do you go about that process?
I think it's, where do you feel comfortable? Because I never want to put it in map form, because you can put it in a map form and then before you know it, you're writing forever, or at least what feels like forever, and then you get stuck and then you don't know what to do anymore, and then you backtrack because now you're afraid of it. I always say, like, don't be afraid of the writing. Let it take you. If you feel like this is a good point to end it, go ahead and end it, and then if it becomes a series, let it become a series, and then you finished book 1, now start book 2, or at least start book 2 when you've, you know, relaxed and you're ready to start writing again. And I kind of see it as like you finished one, what's the word I'm looking for? You finished one climax. You got them in the beginning, it's taken off, they de-stress with you, and then they sit down and they think about it. Boom, that's a good ending. And then if something else is going to happen, boom, that's book 2. And then you've got a series building. I never see it as like an end game, because I think as me as a writer, I have this inability of saying goodbye to my characters.
Yeah.
So there will be another book probably, because I can never kill anybody off. They're always going to stay and they're going to be there, and then something else is going to happen. So I think it's just wherever you feel comfortable. Like, does it feel like a good point to stop? Then go ahead and stop it there. And then if you feel like it needs to continue, then maybe start a book 2. So that way you're not prolonging book 1. You can start it in a different series or in a different book to create a series. And then a lot of people like reading series, because then they're like, boom, the characters are growing. I want to grow with them. And then you just keep going. You never know when you're going to stop. There's no end. You can keep going. Just find an end to whatever that plot was in that point.
So you mentioned, okay, you finish that plot. How do you find the plot? Like, how do you find like the overall arching plot of like book 1? Boom, one plot.
And this I learned on Wattpad. Your characters need to have a want and a need. So then you can list that for yourself. I do that as part of my planning that I may or may not stick to. But that, what is their want? Do they need, or what do they want to, like Conduit, for example? Does he want to help this company? But he needs to save the world. So it's like, in order to save the world, he needs to help the company, but he doesn't want to. So it's kind of like a tug and pull where you find this what needs to happen, but this is what he wants overall. So you kind of put them and bounce them around each other, and then they just kind of build. Like, this is what he needs to do, but what he wants kind of conflicts what he needs to do. So you kind of get that push and pull to build your plot. He needs to reprogram the robots, but he doesn't want to help the company that is torturing the robots. So it's kind of like a tug and pull at his own humanity, and he doesn't, trust the humans empowering him with this power, if that makes sense. So it's kind of like you build your tug and pull. They want something, but they need to do something else. And then you kind of build from that. And then that's where your plot will be, created from there.
Actually, I have two questions for you regarding that. Since Wattpad is it's a community, and some of and your work is ongoing, like Conduit, is your book or your writing at some point influenced by the community, by like their reactions to it, by how it actually they receive it, by how they're talking about the book or what their expectations are? Because I'm guessing, okay, they read this chapter, everyone starts throwing theories out, and do you actually read them out and then just go, "No, I'm gonna spin this around just to mess with them"? Or is there some way in that this community actually influences your writing?
It can, and it has in the past. I've had people say, "Oh no, he's real. He's really real. You got to make him real." And I was like, "Okay, he's real now." But then from there, you kind of get ideas. Like, it would be a good idea to make him more human, or it would be a good idea to make him, more stronger or more faster. So you do get to build off of the community based on their reactions and kind of like what they would love to see. So you can even ask your readers at the end of each chapter, like, "Hey, how was this chapter? Did you like so-and-so? Did you like their decisions here?" And then you'll get readers that be like, "Yes." And then you get readers that say no. So you're kind of like, well, okay, I'm going to keep going until I get like a middle to kind of lean on. But they can influence. And like I said, for me, they have in the past. Sometimes it's just like, well, this is how the story is going to be. Either you're with me or you're not with me, because there are some characters that I won't change. So you like them or you don't like them. And then if you don't like them, there's other books for you to read. You can take that part out. I'm sorry.
No,
leave it
it's
there.
the truth. It's the truth.
I'm laughing
You don't
here.
like it, move on.
This is why I'm laughing about it. Right now, this week of the 1st of November, we have finally, after 10 years, the final chapter of Attack on Titans, the anime. There's a big controversy because when they published the book, the manga, there was a big community that didn't like it. The other one, we respect it. I respect the ending. I don't care if people like it or not. I respect the author will, the writer will. But there's big rumors that they're going to change the final. So everybody, the big question for this week is the final moment, the final 90 minutes in a run or hour and a half. I think it's almost hour 40 minutes. Are they going to respect the writer will, or are they going to please a group of audience after 10 years of production? So I'm here laughing about it because based on ramping up on Meso question, it's something that really happens. So, and I'm glad that you said it like that. I respect the writer will, because at the end there's more books, and I'm a big believer. I'm a big believer of respecting the writer's will and not trying to change the story when you didn't write even chapter 1 or line 1.
Yeah, it's your vision. It's your baby. It's you poured blood, sweat, and tears into that. You decide what it should look like, not them. So you do you. That's great. Okay. Very quick. Let's talk a little bit about one book which is not it's not it's Wi-Fi. It's not sci-fi.
It's Wi-Fi.
Definitely not Wi-Fi. Definitely not Wi-Fi.
You can mobile Wi-Fi.
I was gonna say Wattpad and Sci-Fi and boom, Wi-Fi, but okay, whatever. Okay. A book that is not sci-fi. It's according to you, your first attempt at romance, and that's Coffee Shop. So for those of us, all of us who haven't had a chance to read it yet, what is Coffee Shop? Like, how would you describe it?
So Coffee Shop is like you said, my first attempt at romance. It was the first time I tried. And it's about a young female, Kay Ruiz, who she leaves home because her parents are really strict and she wants to be able to grow and, you know, be her own person. So she leaves and then she goes out into the city, you know, by herself. But she does it pretty rashly. So she doesn't have any money. She falls into the kindness of, you know, others. Like her landlord is really nice. He's like, it's okay. You can stay in this apartment, you know, until you find a job. And the whole premise of the story is that she walks into a coffee shop with the same name because she's Kay. Well, she's Khadija, but, you know, she goes by Kay. And then the coffee shop is Kay's coffee shop. So she walks in like it's a sign. And then when she walks in, the guy at the counter turns around and she's like, oh, he's beautiful. I like him. And then they kind of have like this whole awkward exchange because Kay is very awkward. She's very silly. And she doesn't know how to, you know, like normal interact with people. So she's, you know, fumbles over her words and she stumbles and she's very klutzy. And he's just like, no, you're good. It's okay. So they just have like this whole weird interaction until he finally hires her. And then from there, working together, they start to fall in love. And then that's their love story, meeting in the coffee shop.
With a little bit of spoiler, what would be one of those best moments in the story of Coffee Shop?
I think the best moment in Coffee Shop is it's a spoiler, but not a spoiler. But she finds out why it's called Kay's Coffee Shop. And there's like a lot of drama.
Better ever.
And it's like that's where all the drama starts, and then that's where the tug and pull between heart and mind and what you want and what you need starts to happen, because she's like, what I want is him, but this up there, the name of this shop is something else. So it's just kind of, you know, that's a spoiler, and I don't want to dig any deeper into the spoiler.
It's the name of an ex?
I'm so curious right now.
I'm so curious, by the way.
So curious right now.
I'm thinking here, it must be the ex. That's the name of her ex-girlfriend.
So let's talk about Double Edge for now. Double Edge and, well, Human Code is the last one we're going to talk about. That one, like I mentioned before, is 2020 Watty's winner.
Mm-hmm.
That's a tongue twister right there. So before we get to Human Code, what's Double Edge about? Like brief synopsis, and is it just sci-fi, or is like sci-fi with other themes also?
So Double Edge is about a young man, he's in his early 20s, who he participated in a crime with his friends, but then the friends ended up, you know, throwing him under the bus. So what was supposed to be an easy bank robbery ended up with him being, you know, sentenced to life in jail. So his whole thing is just like, he has a daughter, and that's the only reason why he wanted to participate, because his daughter needed a kidney transplant and he didn't have the money to pay for it. So he's in life in jail. He doesn't know if his daughter's going to make it. He doesn't have communications with the mother of the child. His friends don't visit him. His mother doesn't visit him. So he's kind of stuck. And then this man comes to the jail and says, if you become the experiment for my new company that experiments on humans and creating augmented humans.
There you go. There it is.
if you agree to these terms and become our project, I'll get you out of jail. And you can see your daughter and you can see your family. He's just like, I just need you to focus your energy because you have a lot of rage. And he's just like, so you're going to get me out of jail? And the guy's like, yeah. So he agrees. And his whole plan after becoming an augmented human is that he's going to get revenge on the friends who sold him out, because they're the whole reason why he lost the years with his daughter and he lost out on the years with his mother and his family. He wants to get those years back. And the only way he knows is through revenge. And that's why it's called double-edged, because it's kind of like a double-edged sword. You know, he wants his freedom, but there's revenge involved. So it's kind of like, you want to do bad things to do good things. So
yeah, at what cost?
Yeah, at what cost, right? He becomes thirsty for revenge, and then he starts to realize, do I need this revenge? Because it's not really a requirement for my life right now. So then he's like tackling himself. And then no spoilers. But think that
it sounds really cool because it kind of sounds like the origin story of a villain, and I'm all for it.
I was waiting for when the description. I was waiting for the sci-fi moment. I'm like, wait, there's some sci-fi until say company. Like, there it is. Again, one of those memes from Leonardo. There it is. Look at it.
No, I was afraid I had mislabeled it. I was like, no. Where's the sci-fi experiment? Perfect.
There you go. There you go.
When you mention augmented humans, you mean like what they're doing, like for example, in I forgot the name of the movie. For one of the first Marvel movies, with Captain America. With Captain America. Captain America.
Like the super serum with the super serum, like that.
So when we talk about augmented humans, are we talking about like here you can just super strength or more strength than an average human, intelligence, or is it something more?
Like RoboCop.
Or like flying.
No flying. In this case, he's more like I guess you could compare him more to what they did to Wolverine, but think of it more with there's a computer chip in his head. They replaced one of his eyeballs, so his eyeball kind of like is mechanical and it can zoom in and out and read body temperatures and change the infrared light so he can see other aspects of a room rather than just what's in front of him. He's also stronger because his bones are enhanced and the computer chip that's in his head programs those enhancements. So he always gets alerts like, oh, your bone shields are at 70%. So then he knows, oh, okay, I can move a little more. And then once they reach 100%, he's like, oh, okay, we're fighting now. And then the main thing that kind of gets him is that if he gets hit to the head, that's where the computer chip is. So then he'll start to get like a defect. And then he has to run back to his own personal technician. She's still always running diagnostics on him to make sure like, oh, your bone shield's cracked. Like you have to get a surgery to get these replaced. Or your computer chip was damaged. We need to get that replaced. And he's kind of like, no. I need to get revenge. We can worry about all that later. I want to take out my friends who didn't care about me in the moment that I needed them the most. So that's like the basis of the story is that he wants his revenge. And then
just duct tape it. I need to get out.
Put some duct tape. Call it a day.
And then I have a quick question because of something you mentioned. Because you mentioned that there's a chip inside of him and eyeballs replaced. It sounds like you kind of go, or you have to touch a little bit in the anatomy of the person. Even if you don't, again, I haven't read it. I want to read it even more. So, do you ever have to do any research on anything? Like, let's say this would have talked it. I don't know. Again, you just answer my question if it does or not. Does it go a little bit into any type of anatomy if we're dealing with like the microchip and look your bones and whatever, or not?
I don't specifically.
Okay.
I think that's what I love about sci-fi the most. It's whatever I say goes. So you just kind of have to you just got to take my word for it. So,
with that said, even if it doesn't go into that, that's perfectly fine. Even if it doesn't go into that, have you had any point when you're writing any of these things that you've had to research any aspect to enhance it or write it better in what you're thinking, or you go straight into my brain saying this is what's going on the page, and you're gonna take it at face value because that's my world?
More like it's my world, but I have done research on like what is this, this new scientific thing that's being built, and then I kind of look into that, and then I see it and I read it, and then I'm like, now how can I rename it and make it my own thing? So then I'll kind of like pull off of the way technology is advancing today, and the way AI is advancing today. And then you see all these videos nowadays with them creating like robots that are actually functioning and moving and doing things. And I'm kind of like, this is how it starts. So then I'll pull that, and then I just kind of rename things and rework it, and then kind of make it my own creation, to make it my own sci-fi universe, and then build from that. So my biggest thing that I kind of do in a lot of my sci-fi works is everybody's connected through like a earpiece that's like implanted in their head somehow. And then it's just kind of like, they tap it and then they can start talking to people. So it's kind of like you got a walkie-talkie in your head at all times. And that's kind of like one of my favorite things. I think I saw it on an episode of Black Mirror, and then I kind of rolled with it from then. But it's like, it feels so real. And I'm like, I can play with it because it feels so real. And I can see that happening within like the next 20 or 10 to 20 years, where all of us will kind of have like a more accessible way to communicate with people rather than just phones or computers or, emails or anything. It's just like right there, I tap a button on my skin and we are talking. So I do research on that, but most of the time it's just whatever came to my head at the time, and then I go with that.
Honestly,
I have I'm sorry. I do have a question for you, Vee. Taking into account that most of your work has to do with sci-fi, do your books have like a shared universe, or some of the works do, or are everything is their own thing?
Most are standalone. I do have some series up that connect, but the books don't interconnect, unless I say so in the blurb. Like if it's within the same universe, I'm going to tell you it's in the same universe. But most of the time they're standalone, and you can read this universe as its own universe. You might find things that are similar, because this is where my comfort zone is, and I'll keep using it. But 9 times out of 10, it's its own universe, unless I say otherwise.
Okay, cool.
Before we talk about Human Code, real quick, more like a background of you. How do you get into writing? Was it something like from when you were young, or was it something that you picked up later on in life? And one, how did you get into writing? And two, how did you learn how to like do it and just get better at it?
So writing came from when I was really little. I scribbled on paper all day. And then one day my mom just picked up the paper and then she stapled them together. And this is when I was doing squiggles. So none of this was actually legible. It was just me making little pictures and lines. But she stapled them all together into like this little booklet like style, and then read the story I wrote. And then I was like, oh, I can do that. So that led me into reading, because like she did that and I was kind of, I want to read books. So everybody was, I come from a very music oriented family. Like everybody's playing an instrument. Like my uncles were playing congas all the time. They were in a band. So I was surrounded by music. So my parents tried to get me into music and I was like, this isn't for me. I was just like, I just want to read books. That just buy me books. My mom said, okay. So then she would take me to the store every weekend and I'll buy more books. And I read all the time. I was always lost in my own world. And then you're reading, so then you kind of see like, oh, I can do this. You know, my mom made me feel like I could do it when I was really small. And I'm reading these books and I can craft my own stories that I want to read, because, you know, you're reading these books and it's like, where is someone like me in these books? Like, where is someone from my type of family, my community? Where is somebody who, you know, has a titi with all the gossip, or, you know, has the abuela that's like the glue to the whole family. Like, I want to see that. So like I grew up and then I was like, I can write that and make it my own. And make my own stories the way I want to read, and then create characters that I feel comfortable and I can connect to in my own way. Because my main thing as I started to write was being comfortable with myself, and then being able to connect to stories. Because at the end of the day, I write a lot, but I also write for me. And then if anybody else wants to read it, feel free. It's here for you. We can communicate. We can be friends. But I write for myself and I love my work as I write it. And then if other people want to love it too, I'm all for it. You guys can love it with me and we can do a whole little powwow and, you know, throw a party for it and communicate and stuff. And that's what I love about Wattpad, because you'll meet people that are just like, I love this. And I was like, me too. And, you know, and you just build off of that, because it's kind of endless. People to meet, there's endless opportunities. You just kind of bounce around to see like where you could fit, because you're always going to find where you can fit. So you just keep writing and reading. And then the more you write, the more you read, and then you kind of develop your own style, and then you can build off of that. And there's like, keep writing until you love it, because you're not going to write like you're writing in the beginning, because, you know, you're just starting. But as you craft it more and you write more, you're going to be like, I like this. I'm going to keep going off of this. And then you find your niche and you find your comfort zone, and you just keep going from there.
Honestly, that's great advice. I'm gonna ask you for a couple more tips later for like future writers.
Sure.
But before we do that, we got to talk about, we've been building up to this, and here it is, guys. Not a slow burner, but here it is. Human Code 2020 Watty's winner. First of all, what is Watty's winner? And then second of all, what is Human Code, and what is the book about?
So like I said, Wattpad has a lot of opportunities for writers, where they'll like feature your work and they'll see your work and make it visible. Watty's is an annual competition on Wattpad. So it's like the big contest, like think of the Grammys, like that's Wattpad's version of the Grammys. It's the Watty's. And everybody submits to see if they can win, because it's everybody in the community is submitting a book. Every year there's different rules, so you just got to read the rules. But it's like the big thing. Everybody aims to win it. And then Human Code is one of the stories that I'm very proud of. It has a special place in my heart, because it was the first story where I said, I'm not going to be afraid anymore. I'm going to have my Latino lead, and he's going to be the main face of this whole story. And then I wrote him into a blended family. So he's got his family, he's got an adopted sister, but like the main core base of the story is that he died and he was recreated as an android, and kind of given as many memories as they could to make him the real person. So his name's Javier, and they were just, you know, trying to recreate Javier because he died in the worst possible way and they couldn't say goodbye. And then he's in this world now where the only person who loves him is his adopted sister, because she doesn't see him as anything other than the person who loves her. And then she takes his kind of immortality, I guess you could say, because he can't die, he's an android. And she turns him into her own Peter Pan. She was like, well, Peter Pan takes care of his lost boys, and you're my Peter Pan, and I'm your lost boy. And my name's Wendy. And then they have like this strong brother-sister love. And then she gets kidnapped by rogue androids who are fighting to be seen. And then other androids are just kind of breaking down from like this defect. And he's trying to figure out like, am I going to break down? Am I gonna fall flat? Like, I can't break down if I'm taking care of my sister. So then you have like this whole family pool where his parents are like, yeah, he's gonna die. He already died, so we have to say goodbye. And you have his sister that's like, no, you're Peter Pan. Peter Pan doesn't die. And he's just like in the middle, but the one rogue android. And then you kind of get like this whole, you know, I want to be seen. I want to be human. And then they have like this human code of what makes them feel more like a person and not a machine. And Javier is the one that they want to be because he was based off of a person. And he's the most real out of all of them. So they want his human code, if that makes sense.
Yes. Honestly, based on your description alone, I think if I read this book, it's gonna make me cry. I don't know why.
I'm sorry. A lot of people cry by chapter 3.
Oh, okay.
By chapter 3?
It's very quick. Because like you were saying a lot of things, and I'm like,
zero chills. Zero
chills. I'm like cry so much.
Yeah, a lot of the reactions is very sad by chapter 3, and my apologies in advance. I apologize to everybody who says they need tissues, and I'm like, I'm sorry.
That's a surprise.
I mean, that's good. At least we'll know what to expect. Like, okay, I'm crying in chapter 3. Am I gonna cry some more, or is it okay? At least I know that I'm emotionally prepared for. There's a possibility that I might cry some more.
By chapter, you're like, I bring a napkin. I need a
like Violet Evergarden. Like you cry the first, and then you just keep on crying thereafter till the end.
I love the whole thing. I watched the whole series. I watched the movie, and I was all into Violet Evergarden. And that anime spawned so many ideas because I was kind of like, androids can be real. Androids can love. She loved this guy. And she fought for him, and she fought to find him, and she wrote love letters to everybody. And I was like, this is painfully beautiful. I was all for it, and I was like, I'm gonna write these too.
Interesting. I always say interesting because I like every time I watch Violet Evergarden by myself, and every time Onyx would pass by because he was working, Onyx would pass by, I was just like bawling my eyes out, and I'm like, can I expect the same thing in this book? That's great if it does.
Maybe. Maybe.
I mean, chapter 3. Okay.
Yeah.
Vee,
yes.
Any tips for future writers?
My biggest tip is to don't stop. Even if it seems scary, just keep pushing. This is your story. Like I said before, like, you know, this is your story. These are your words. Stick to it. There's a reader for everybody, just like, you know, there's books for everybody. So there's a reader for everything. You'll find your readers, plural. I'm going to put the S because there are going to be tons of them. You just have to produce. So don't worry about numbers. Don't worry about, you know, how many readers you have in the beginning, because the story will pass by word of mouth. Somebody reads it and they're like, I really like this. So then they'll tell their friends, and then their friend will read it and they're like, oh, this was actually really good. And then it just keeps going from there. So as long as you keep producing and you keep writing, you will, you know, become stronger in yourself, and you will love yourself as a writer. And that's like my biggest thing. And I put that up on Wattpad a lot. Like, don't, you know, worry about other people, you know, just keep going. Build your own community. Don't be afraid to talk to people, you know, find people who like what you like, and then, you know, read what they read. And then you just kind of build an interest in that, and you build a, you know, your own personal world and within that world. So then you can just keep growing and building and, you know, like crafting your little bricks. And then you know, you can climb those bricks to get to the top. So in order to get to the top, you have to build the bricks. So if you don't have any bricks built up already, how are you going to, you know, achieve your goals? So just like, there's no end. There's no magic door. You have to create, you know, your own path, because everybody has their path. We're all on a similar wavelength with similar goals. Everybody's on a different, you know, kind of like their own brick road. Find your own brick road and then take that. And then you'll see that somewhere along the line, you guys are going to cross paths and you're going to be like, hey, we both started together. Let's keep working together and let's keep writing together. And then you just keep going from there. It's just the main thing is don't stop. Don't stop until you say like, I wrote this for me and I'm extremely proud of it. And then you don't let go.
That's great advice. Again, I'm very excited to start reading this. So Vee, thank you so much for being with us tonight. Where can thank you. Where can apart from Wattpad, how can they find you in Wattpad, first of all? And secondly, where what other social media do you have that people can connect with you?
So on Wattpad, I'm my name, so I'm Vee Lozada. And you can find me that way. You can also find me on Instagram under the same name, Vee Lozada. I'll put up like graphics here and there. I'll put up an occasional video. I put up motivational speeches like, you know, what I just did, you know, like don't stop, you know, keep going, keep being strong. I put up that. I'm on TikTok. I'm Vee Lozada 1 on TikTok because someone already had my name. Yeah. I know, it's kind of like, oh, okay. But on TikTok, I'm Vee Lozada 1, and sometimes I try to put up funny videos about writing. And mainly I focus on like, you know, the side characters because they're always the goofy ones and you just kind of, you know, trying to work around them. And they're the characters that are just like, well, this is what I want to do. And then on Twitter, X, I don't know what people want to call it these days.
We'll stick with Twitter because it sounds better and it was prettier. And it was less of a hassle.
I tweet, I don't X, so Twitter.
On Twitter, I am also Vee Lozada, so you can see me on there too. I don't use it as much as I used to, honestly, but I'm also there, and sometimes I'll put up a story or I'll put up a motivational quote. I do like to connect to people, so you can always like reach out and send me like a hello, and I'll say hello back. And then, you know, you just chit chat because, you know, it's all about the communities and, you know, on all the platforms. And then that's how you build, you know, friendships to build on.
Perfect. And for all of us here at El Koki Otaku, you can follow us on every single social media, basically Twitter, YouTube. We humbly ask for a subscribe, like, and share every single video because we're trying to even build YouTube. We're building YouTube even more. We're on Twitch, we're on Facebook, we're on anything you can imagine. I think Onyx also started a Threads, so like every single social media you can think of, and TikTok, we're there. So thank you once again for joining us tonight, and we'll see you in the next episode. Bye.
Bye.
Take care.